Hello, my name is Skipper Kendrick, President of Kendrick Global Enterprises, and I'd like to share with you in this presentation a little bit about our journey. A journey that began with a Fortune 500 company, Textron, and a journey where we were doing well, we were doing okay, but in our vein of continuous improvement. What is out there? How do we improve? What are we going to utilize to drive that improvement? And we decided on a safety management system. So I'd like to take you on our journey just a little bit as we went from a company that was doing well to a company that achieved very good things through the design, the development, the implementation of a management system, and then utilizing that management system as a leading indicator. Like many companies, our focus was on injuries and illnesses, the driver. And we look at our iceberg example of this. And in a lot of cases, though, the things that we're looking at are actually below the waterline. Things like the human performance, things like our systems, our business systems, our environment, the physical environment in which we work, and the overall business that we do. And being a global Fortune 500 company, being a very diverse conglomerate, this was a challenge to be able to come up with a system that would be applicable in a number of our different businesses and our business areas. The other thing is we started out with where are we now? And we weren't doing too bad at that point. But what do we want to be? Where do we want to go? And the other thing is once we define where we want to go, how are we going to get there? It came to us through the utilization of a couple of concepts by a gentleman by the name of Albert Einstein that number one is you can't solve your problems or you can't get any better using the techniques or the thoughts or the processes that got you to where you are. You've got to do something just a little bit different. And then his definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and hoping to improve. So utilizing these concepts, we set together a group of us and we took a look at what would be the end in mind and looking at what are we demonstrably, what are we going to visibly demonstrate that we want. And we had to be able to come up with a construct that not only was good on paper, but we had to do the proverbial walk the talk as we go through. So our structure at that point in time was working under the umbrella of the leadership team at Textron, and then with the various business units from people that made golf cars to helicopters to jets to lending money to weaponry, to various vehicles in the service of our war fighters. Again, a diverse group, something that might work for all. So the Textron leadership team gave us a vision and gave us a direction. What can we do? And bottom line, how can we get there a little bit faster? Within this structure, we had an EHS council. And that council was composed of senior business leaders as well as the senior EHS representative, environmental health and safety representative from each of the business units. And then we flowed down to the business units themselves. So the idea was what could we do that would match the vision and promote the vision of the executive leadership team, but be able to be done and implemented at the shop floor and or the business unit level. So with that, we took a look and we said, hey, what do we do? Where are we going? Well, our goals were, the things protect community, protect the environment, continuous expansion, be compatible where we went and where we were throughout the entire organization. And the bottom line is what are we going to do and what can we do to reduce injuries and illnesses in the workplace? And a fellow employee, a fellow compadre, a peer of ours, came up with what we called our spaghetti chart with the idea that whatever we do and we chose to take a look at the management system approach. If we did well with our management system, the subsequent results would be a lowering of the injury and illness. Thus, the spaghetti chart, increasing scoring, increasing proficiency in our management system, yields lower injuries and illnesses. So we formed a core team. We spent a couple of months in the air in hotel rooms talking with leading organizations at the time. What were they doing? What systems were they using? And then we had a week-long lock-in with our team. And at the end of that lock-in, we showed up on Sunday. Friday afternoon, we were to make a presentation to our senior management as to a recommendation of a management system. And as such, they bought it. We began with 13 elements of the system, but we had been subject to a couple of natural disasters. There'd been several fires, and at their request, at senior management's request, we implemented our 14th element, and that element would be one of emergency response, emergency planning, because of the focus. They bought that. They bought our premise. They bought our system, and we rolled it out the following year. The rollout was with a little training, and the idea was to do some soft evaluations, self-evaluations, self-inspections, and reporting back to how we were doing. And it worked. With the soft, with the attention, we were seeing results in the lowering of our injury illness rate as we got better and as we became more proficient in implementation of our management system. But one day, my boss was on the elevator with the CEO, and the comment was, "We're doing well. What could we do to increase and hasten the improvement?" My boss said, "Better implementation of our management system." That led to a meeting with the CEO to really drill down and have him understand what we were doing and what the management system entailed, and left with that meeting with the commitment of the senior official, the CEO, the president and chairman of the board, agreeing to put the management system score, the overall evaluation, into his personal goals, reportable to the board of directors. And the old adage, what gets measured gets done. What's important to the boss is important to me. And therefore, the softness of our self-evaluations took on a new meaning. We rebaselined because now it was able to flow down from the board of directors all down to the lowest operating unit in the plants and or the facilities. So that as we made progress, there were some organizations that said, "Hey, we reached this plateau and we were fine with that plateau. It's gotten us here." But again, doing the same thing, are you going to get any better? So the CEO challenged us for incremental improvement year over year. And as such, that was a tipping point where we really saw significant improvement in our management system scores and the resultant lowering of our injury illness rates. That went on for a number of years. And then the question is, once we had reached a certain level, what do we do next? Also, some feedback from some of our operations, because one of our business units lent money, managed golf courses and resorts, which their business is significantly different from that of manufacturing helicopters, jets, and things for our warfighters. So we managed to be able to modify and adjust continual improvement, our management system, to be able to adjust it to their level of risk, something that made sense for them to do and that they could implement as we came through. And another version of our management system evolved. And with that, we were able to gain some relative degree of success along the way through the years of implementing this management system. One of the business units, Bell Helicopter, and then subsequently the entire organization, Textron, was recognized as some of America's safest organizations and companies. And submitting the application from the Textron perspective, we submitted the application globally, worldwide, not just the organizations within the United States. So with this, it was a proof and it was validation through not only that we were seeing reduced injury illness in our workplaces, but the process was recognized as something that was there, good and viable. And in the composition of this, we were asked to develop guiding principles. And everybody has, hopefully everybody would have those guiding principles. It's those values. It's what you're going to get up and do each and every day. It's the things that are going to guide you in doing your job when nobody else is looking. So we were able to come up with 8 of those guiding principles from the activities that, hey, nothing we do is worth creating injuries. We can prevent many, if not all, of the injuries and illnesses. It's a condition of employment that everybody should be there. We're going to design safety, environmental, into our processes, and then we're going to provide you with the training, the necessary skills to be able to do that. And at the bottom line, it's going to be good for business. But late one evening in that lock-in session, we had committed to getting something on the flip chart. We wrote down something so that we could go to bed and then get up and review it the next morning and adjust it. When we got up the next morning, we all sat back and we reviewed the guiding principle, which became a linchpin for all of the rest of them. And that guiding principle, that environmental health and safety, is a process, not a program. A process that is led by senior management, implemented by line management, with each being accountable to the one above and responsible to the one below. And think about that. A process led by senior management, implemented by line management, with accountability to the ones above and responsibilities for those below. For those that were trying to just do what you can, there's no place to hide with that construct and that basic principle. So it guided us along the way to the things that we were working, the things that we did, and the implementation of our management system. So a number of the elements, and there were 14 elements, and if you will take a look at the current ISO 45001, ANSI Z10, those management systems that are out there today, the guidance and the things that you will hear and see were pretty much incorporated into the things that we're doing now. Things such as policy and management commitment, leadership engagement, employee engagement. What are the hazards in the workplace? How do you manage the EHS or OSH program as we're going through? How do you organize things around it? Do you give them training, education? How do you communicate it? Do you document it? It's critical in our profession to have things documented. But most probably the most difficult was our 11th item and element within that is operation and organizational control. How do you really take what's on the paper and make it happen in your organization? Then we had our emergency planning. And then based on the old concept of plan, do, check, act, you measure, you assess, you review, and then what do? You make recommendations for corrective action. And then you begin again and throw that back at the planning stage. So as we did this and as we constructed this, what gets measured gets done. How do you measure it? Each of the 14 elements was divided into 5 separate gradients. and you were given a 1 to a 5. 1 if you were getting started, barely doing it. With 5, when you reached level 5, you would be able to qualify for the management systems that were in effect at that time. OSHA's VPP, ISO 14000, ANSI Z10, so that if you reached a level 5, you would be able to qualify for those particular elements. Now, the other thing that we learned is that many of our organizations were doing things at a level 5, but they were missing things at a level 2 or maybe a level 3. So as we constructed this and as we got better, before you could claim a level, you had to check off all of the boxes, do all of the things at that particular level before you could give yourself credit for the next level. Because of the fact it flowed down from the CEO to the lowest level in the organization, there was a monthly metric that was reported on our management system, and it flowed all the way down from the plant level to the business unit level to the global organization. And that is what the CEO was able to report to the board. And as we go through that, what we found was that we started out at, even though we were good, at a relatively high level in terms of injury illness, one that we were not satisfied with, even though we were better than a whole lot of people. The implementation of that system, even in its soft version, showed some results. But the tipping point where you can see a lowering of our injury illness and a significant rise in our management system was when the CEO says, I'll take it, I'll put it in my evaluations, and I'll report it to the board of directors. So that what we found was that as we approached level 5, we were down in significant reductions in injuries and illnesses. When I left the organization, our management system scores across the organization were around 4.7 on our scale of 1 to 5. And as such, when we took a look at our injury illness record, that was significantly lower, and we were down at about a 1.2, which at that point in time was approaching world class. So that as we learned, we progressed, we improved. Now, the one thing where everybody was shooting for level 5, but as within many organizations, there's fluidity, there's change at leadership level, there are acquisitions, there are divestitures, so that where the pinnacle was 5, that we were satisfied with the gradients of 4.5 to 5 point upper and lower control limits as we went through. And if we could reach that, we were able to reach those levels, and we were able to sustain those particular levels. So it really, really drove our culture. It drove what we were doing. It gave no place for management at many levels or employees to hide. It was a consistent benchmark across all levels. We had some issues. We had that we rolled it out soft. We didn't do enough training. In some cases, people were still looking at it as a numbers, meet the numbers type of scenario. But once we really got ingrained and once we really bought into the system, we wound up finding out that it was a powerful driver. What gets measured gets done. And if we do the right things in the right way and measure them, we turned our management system into a leading indicator that produced significant results. What were those results exactly? I'm able to share those with you a little bit. That when I left the organization in 2009, the recordable rate was 1.2. Now the key here is, here we are some years later. The question is, where are they now? Well, I was able to touch base with the organization and talk to them on where they have been and where they are now. And their current status is they're taking the elements of the management system and they're freshening those elements of the management system on a journey toward total compliance with the 45001, with ISO 45001. Again, the idea of that continual improvement. Is it working? As of the first quarter of this year, the total recordable case rate for the organization is 0.96, which is a considerable achievement considering the global footprint, considering the things that have happened, the acquisitions, the divestitures, just really the chaos of the last 2 to 3 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that may be watching, I would strongly encourage you to consider the development and the implementation of a management system. If you need help, there are tons of them out there. There's ANSI Z10, there's ISO 45001, there is the Voluntary Protection Program from OSHA. There are a number of management systems available that you can model yourself and use those things. Many businesses are not ready for 14 clauses, 14 elements of a management system. But we find that we began at some of the business units with a fairly simple one, and one that you can count on 5 fingers. Number 1 is compliance. It's never going to go out of style. Number 2, observe the hazards, correct the hazards in the workplace. Number 3, give the employees at all levels, from leadership to the newest to the new hire, the training, education, and skills that they need to do their job. Number 4 is engage everybody from the CEO to the newest of the new hire. Have them contribute, have them participants in this. And then the last one, we're not going to be perfect. So have a great evaluation system. Tell yourself the truth. Give yourself that hard look in the mirror. And if you find you need to get better, do some things that will allow you to get better so that you don't have to come back and revisit the same things. And then 5 elements, 5 fingers, 1 to 5. A good way to be able to begin your journey on the road to an environmental health and safety, occupational safety and health, whichever we wish to call it, management system. Because I leave you with a thought. Your organization has a system to run the business. And if you'll take a look at that system to run the business, you will find there is some synergy, there's some integration that we can have into the things that we need to do for occupational safety and health that are already being done within the organization. Many organizations need to run parallel with an occupational safety and health, EHS management system, until they can truly integrate. But it's my fond hope that at one point in time, when somebody views this particular video, a video clip, that we've been able to remove the words safety, environmental health, occupational safety and health from the management system, and have a true management system that includes and is inclusive of occupational safety and health, and that the organization manages it like it manages every other piece of the business.